Hi everybody, Richard Tromans here again, Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're doing a bit of a special interview that is neither a product walkthrough, nor is it actually about Legal Innovators California, which is the event behind me. It's actually to talk about a really important subject, really, but one we sometimes gloss over, which is what is generative AI doing to eDiscovery? How is it changing, and what does it mean? To tell us a bit more is James at Disco. Hey, James.
Hey Richard.
Good to have you with us. First of all, before we dig into the whole generative AI and e-discovery bit, just tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking more about generative AI and eDiscovery space. So my name is James Park. I'm the AI consulting director at Disco. I've been at Disco now for over 2 years. I've been in this space for over 16, all of it at the intersection of law and technology. So really, pretty much as soon as I passed the bar exam, I went into kind of initially doc review and then quickly advising clients on using big data analytics techniques to ESI. First, data analytics and really finding ways to both hone in on the important documents and cutting out irrelevant material. And
Mm,
then when TAR came along, obviously started transitioning and advising clients on how to best use TAR,
mm,
including defensibility, best case, best practices and such. And then when generative AI came along, I've now included advising clients on generative AI use, here at Disco, obviously, and competitors as well have put out a number of Gen AI
for sure.
enabled tools.
Yeah.
So I've been focusing quite a bit of my attention on advising clients on use of those technologies.
Gotcha. Fantastic. And, and sort of implicit in what you're saying is that, e-discovery has been on a journey, hasn't it? I mean, going slightly off subject, but we'll have to keep this very brief. When do you think officially e-discovery actually started? People throwing technology at huge bunches of documents. When did that really
Oh
begin?
gosh, I mean,
The 80s before that?
It was probably before that. Obviously, that's before my time. I mean, I think even when people had bankers boxes of paper documents, there were some techniques they used to um, get better handle on what the data contain, right? So labeling and such. I think, realistically, when we talk about technology, uh, I think after my time starting in this industry, so I started in this industry in 2008,
Right.
and that's when we were just starting to get into use of unsupervised learning, like so clustering technology, some heat map type of things. Those were kind of the big rage. So, and I think those were just starting to come online. So I think it was probably right before when I kind of joined the fray.
Mm.
Um, and then that kind of continued evolving until really, 2011 when Mark Grossman and Eric Cormack put out their a seminal Why Technology Assisted Review Can Be More Effective paper that it really kind of started incorporating some machine learning type of artificial intelligence technology to the space. So it's been around the using big data analytics and data techniques has been around for a long time, but I think it really started taking off
Mm.
um, around sort of 2005-ish, probably when the first sort of like trek started happening. And I think that was like somewhere around 2001.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let's scroll forward to the future, or the present, which is now moving rapidly into the future with generative AI. So, generative AI arrived in most people's consciousness in around November 2022. Of course, it had been around for several years, or many years, if you were really an experimental AI engineer. But for most of us, it really, really hit most people's desks in late 2022. Most of the existing legal tech companies scrambled across all different practice areas, M&A, you know, legal research, e-discovery, you name it. But let's just look at e-discovery. So, how has generative AI changed, impacted, benefited eDiscovery?
So I think there are a couple of benefits that we're seeing. One is obviously these tools enable users to do things, faster, uh, better, higher quality, etc. Right? So,
Well,
and
I'm going to stop you there straight away. How is it faster? How does using an LLM, which has a predisposition towards all kinds of naughtiness, like hallucinations and so forth, how does that make things faster? Why is it faster to use an LLM to explore text than traditional machine learning?
yeah, it's a good question. I think it allows users to harness the power of the AI to get to information faster. And what I mean by that is, let's say, and you're comparing it to, let's say, traditional machine learning TAR
Mm,
algorithm, right? So with TAR, it's you have to find those examples and you have to feed it examples, and the model learns from those examples. And through that learning, supervised learning process, it starts understanding the features of relevant materials that you care about, right? Sometimes it works really well, and most of the time it works really well with sufficient examples and good labels. Sometimes it doesn't work so well,
mm,
right? And so and also, there are categories of documents where it works really well because they're very clear cut, and there are ones where it doesn't work so well. I think generative AI really kind of flips the script, um, and take our chatbot, for example, right? And obviously we're not the only ones with the chatbot, but I think it's a most clear example. Rather than, when I first started using doing data analytics to look for key documents, hot documents,
mm,
the documents that matter, right? The first thing I did was, okay, what am I really looking for, and how would people talk about this?
mm,
And and then, the dreaded search terms, right? So
mm.
you use this set of search terms. Maybe I use, within 5 proximity, within 10 proximity, but then I wanted to exclude out the signature block. So I'm using a not, there's a whole slew of things, and people have shown time and again that search terms are not great in terms, quantitative analysis. Me qualitatively, it was a lot of trial and error. I think generative AI, its ability to understand context and really understand what you're asking makes it a powerful tool to
Mm.
interrogate a large corpus.
Let-
And
Well,
I've
well, let's just like pin that down a bit. So, like, let's say you were doing a e-discovery task. Let's say it's a relatively simple one. Dispute between two big companies, big discovery. Let's say we've got 1 million items, right? We got a bunch of emails, text messages, right? So it's not the biggest case in the world, but it's fairly big, right? If you were doing the traditional method, machine learning method, how long, I know obviously there's a lot of variables, but generally, how long would it take to get through it using traditional TAR methods, machine learning methods, as opposed to being able to throw some generative AI at it and just put some prompts in and just go, given that we're looking for these concepts and these issues, where do you find those things? And it just goes zip into it, does it? Or, I mean, how, I guess I'm trying to get to the nut of it, which is how truly different are these two approaches?
I think they're very different. So I think
Hmm.
on a traditional, and let's say, on a technology assisted review, let's say TAR 2.0, because that's the predominant method of TAR these days. And so using a TAR 2.0 approach, um, you're still reviewing obviously you are cutting out a lot
Hmm.
of documents from review, but you're still also reviewing a lot of documents. So if you're reviewing, let's say even, 30-40% of 1 million documents, still looking at 300 and 400,000 documents. Now, it's better than reviewing 1 million documents,
And
right?
how long would that take? How long would that take?
I mean, that's a function of math, right? So how many people are you staffing?
Right.
Uh, what's their throughput? How complicated is the protocol? And
But we're talking, I mean, I suppose we're having, we're going to have to talk in averages here, but I mean, an average size team, an average size complexity, we're talking weeks and weeks.
yes, so if you think about, 20 person team working, let's say 8 to 10 hours a day, um, and with some QC time, which you have to bake in, and some other kind of the course correction and retraining. So, I can't do that math in my head right now, but it's a
It's a
fair
lot.
number.
It's
It's
a
a
lot.
lot of time,
So,
right?
okay, so now let's go over to generative AI. And you might be using some TAR as well in various parts of the system, but let's say we're trying to lead this off TAR to start with, sorry, with generative AI to start with. So we're going in with lots of prompting, we're doing conceptual searching, we're searching for ideas, which ultimately in some ways is actually better suited to this task anyway, because we're looking for issues that relate to the case, aren't we? We're not just like just trying to drag up keywords anyway. We never were. I mean, that's one of the ironies of eDiscovery, isn't it? We were never really just looking for keywords. We were looking for ideas.
Yep.
How much will this accelerate things?
A lot, right? And obviously, there's on a small population, on 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 documents, it's comparable. Generally speaking, for using our today, and I expect this to get faster,
Hmm.
using our generative AI technology, auto review to review documents, we're seeing somewhere around 1 to 2 week time investment upfront, where we're optimizing the prompts, so making sure that they work well and to our satisfaction, which means through some rigorous testing through sampling.
Hmm.
Once we're at that stage, then we can push the button and it starts reviewing at 24 hours a day, right? So uh, and at a clip way faster than humans. So that
So
becomes
how, I mean, so how, I mean, so give us a ballpark figure. I mean, I know it's hard to, but just very, if we're talking broad averages, I mean, how much faster are we talking?
well. So for us, and I only speak for us because I do,
Yeah,
I
sure.
think there's been with our competitors, there's been a number of different throughputs out there. With us right now, we are seeing throughputs of 20,000 plus documents per hour.
Wow, wow. So, and compared to TAR, that would be impossible, really, unless you had a room full of 100 people or something.
Yeah, yeah. I think our marketing team has put together what that figure is, but it's
Mm,
hundreds of
yeah.
people, right? So if you think about a typical throughput somewhere that someone gets through a set of documents, we think it's somewhere around 40 to 50 documents per hour per person. So do that math, and it's
Yeah,
it's a lot of people,
it's a
and
lot.
so it's an initial investment of time to optimize your prompts. Once you've kind of done that, then it becomes very fast.
Gotcha. And just for people who are wondering what you mean by optimized prompts, obviously everyone knows what a prompt is these days, but what do you mean by optimize the prompt? What does that mean?
Yeah. So it's a good question. When you have a set of prompts, obviously it can work really well, right? Right out of the gate.
Hmm.
And sometimes it does, right? Oftentimes, if you think about how lawyers draft instructions for the review team, right? Obviously, they can't cover everything, and there might be tranches of things that they miss or tranches of things that are unclear, right? So, the at least the process that we take, and I think others do as well, is to have both humans and AI review the same set of documents
Mm,
and look for those conflicts. Where is the AI missing, or what is the AI kind of getting wrong? And it's really those conflicts that are the gem. And so you figure out, and another big difference between generative AI and PAR is that when PAR gives a low score to a highly relevant document, you don't really know why. Right. It's somewhat of a black box. There's
mm,
some feature in the kind of highly relevant document that doesn't mesh with other relevant documents it's seen before, so it assigns a low score, but you don't really know. With generative AI, and I think this is a big power, is that it opens that black box up a bit. It provides you with reasoning as to why a tag does or does not apply. And
mm,
so you as a user can see those conflict documents, look at the explanation that the AI has provided and say, why did the AI get this wrong? And I think that's the power of generative AI, and that's what allows us to really optimize the prompts because we see its reasoning,
Mm,
why the reasoning is flawed, and how do we update the instruction or the prompt so that the AI is able to get it
mm.
right the next time.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you can say like, actually you shouldn't ignore this. This bit is actually exactly what we do want you to find and blah, 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 blah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously when LLMs first came out, a lot of people said, oh, it's a black box. You can't understand what on earth is going on. But I mean, you've kind of like blown that idea up, which is that actually, no, because you can ask the AI, why did you say that? And it will give
Yeah, and
you reasoning.
I think that's, even in my personal life when I use
Mm,
ChatGPT, I
mm,
ask questions and there are ways to get that information as long as you ask it, right? And things that you can ask for, like, provide why you said this, kind of include that in your prompt as well, and it will give that to you. So I think it opens up the box and really allows you to start interacting with AI in a much more natural way, if you will. If there could
mm,
be a naturalness to interacting with an AI, but really does allow you to sort of almost have a dialogue
mm,
and really understand its reasoning and through that dialogue, how you can instruct the AI to perform not better because it's performing, basically it's doing what you're asking it to.
mm,
So how you can improve your instructions so that the AI's performance is more aligned to your interpretation. And that's what I mean by optimization of the prompts is how can I get my understanding very closely aligned with the AI so that the AI performs as if I'm doing the review.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, I guess it must be frustrating to some of the, sort of veteran e-discovery experts that this didn't exist 20 years ago, because this is really what they would have wanted.
Yeah, tell me about it. I've often said to folks about the generative AI and specifically about the our auto review technology or really using generative AI to do review. This is really delivering on the promise that Tar made back when Tar was introduced, right?
Mm,
Um, Now I think Tar has been amazing, right? I mean, it's been such a force multiplier of human effort because it really significantly reduce the human effort required to meet your discovery obligations
mm,
to produce relevant documents, using reasonable proportional methodologies. Um, like I said earlier, reviewing 300,000 documents or 400,000 documents instead of a million,
mm,
much better. But it's still a lot of documents, right? So I think when first PAR came along, it was like, oh, machines are going to replace humans and all those types of concerns arose.
mm,
We saw it wasn't true because it still
mm,
needed a lot of human effort.
mm,
Um, I think generative AI is really kind of now starting to deliver where AI is replacing some human effort. Now, I do think
mm,
the arrival of generative AI is creating other areas where humans can focus their attention, right?
mm.
Uh, but I do think it is really, at least on some tasks like document review, like some fact finding,
It seems, obviously I have to be sensitive to all of this, but no one wants to be told that their job is no longer necessary. It doesn't matter who you are. But let's face it, if you have a piece of technology that can read 20,000 documents in a few hours and it can really precisely pull out all the key concepts that you need, then yeah, you don't need 100 people in a room, do you?
no, but the on the flip side of that, I think the exciting thing is you know, for me and people that are embracing this technology, sort of, what this means and I think this will create the the types of, it'll invite the types of people that really want to focus on how to leverage technology to get results, right? So not really the doing things part, but you
The
know, kind of
strategic, the more strategic, higher level.
yeah, and the results oriented folks, right? So, rather than let's say, I need to find a piece of fact, right? Typically, historically, how that would be done is either someone running a bunch of searches or number of people running a bunch of searches, or having a large team of reviewers go through documents, tag things, and then that gets through second level review, and then ultimately gets to a small set of documents get to the person that was seeking the information in the first place,
Mm,
right? This will allow a small team, either the person seeking the information in the
mm,
first place or their immediate sort of juniors, to actually, interrogate the data and find the information much more quickly. And so if you have a series of those types of needs, now you're not having a, large team of reviewers reviewing documents. You have a smaller curated set of people, but really driving results much more quickly. So, I think
mm.
that's the power of generative AI. And I think that's one of the more, um, obviously it is, like you said, it's a very sensitive type of thing, but I think it does provide excitement for people that are really embracing technology because
Yeah,
it will allow those people to really thrive.
absolutely. Well, let's just get into some numbers on the financial side. I remember hearing right in the early days, back in the ancient days of early 2023. So many years ago, 2 years ago, but it feels like a lifetime already. I remember hearing someone at a big law firm who was an expert in eDiscovery saying, yeah, but the problem with eDiscovery with generative AI is that it's really expensive. And you've got problems with context windows and chunking of text and all this kind of stuff. So just want to drill into that briefly. Is the cost still an issue, or have costs come down? Are the cost comparable for using this technology? Is it cheaper?
Well, like with any new technology, right? So when the new iPhone comes out, you don't expect to pay less,
Hmm.
right? You expect to pay more. Now, the price does quickly come down. I think that's where we are seeing in that kind of early 2023 type of time frame. I think it was more expensive, but it got resolved faster.
Hmm.
I think the exciting thing was, you know, uh, people were building tools with the expectation that the price was going to come down.
And it has, I
And
guess.
it has, right? So I think right now we are probably at a place where it's comparable to human review or maybe even slightly cheaper.
And it will
Uh,
get cheaper, won't it? I mean, particularly, I wanted to ask you about, I'm going to ask you this now. I was going to come into this later, but with different models. But I mean, presumably some models are cheaper than others to run,
yeah, yeah.
and that
And
that
and it's
provides an advantage.
yeah, I mean, some models are cheaper than others, right? And so I think it gives people that are building the tools options,
Mm,
right? If a cheaper tool, because not every LLM is right for every job,
mm,
right? So, can you do the thing that you're trying to do with a cheaper model? Or do you need the kind of the most up to date, the most expensive model, right?
mm,
Or is it a combination of the two? So I think that it gives people some options as to, can we bring a really useful tool to market using a cheaper model and either, you as a company reap the benefits via margin or you pass
mm.
down those savings to your end clients,
Yeah,
right? So I think it opens up possibilities of, kind of sort of like using buying last year's model phone, right? It's
yeah.
cheaper.
It
Do you
drops a lot,
really
doesn't
need
it? I
to?
mean, it's incredible. I mean, like, I've got the latest iPhone, but yeah, if you went 2 years back, you'd probably get it half price.
You probably get it half price and it might have all the functionality that you
Mm,
need, right?
mm.
So I think it opens up a lot of options.
Uh, well, let's go on to another point, which, and we just very briefly, just because it was something that was raised a lot in the early days of 2023. Chunking and context windows, which people don't really talk about much anymore. And I imagine this is because they don't need to. But just to clarify that point, because obviously you're dealing with a lot of textual data, is data size, context windows, do you need to chunk everything up? Are these even issues anymore?
Yeah, and there are always going to be issues, right? And so amount of tokens you pass the LLM, obviously, the more tokens you pass, the higher the cost, right? So And the more data you pass to the LLM impacts the fidelity or the performance of the LLM.
So
So
you're still chunking it up into smaller pieces to get better results.
it depends on the specific need and whether, I mean, chunking is an option. Larger context window is another option.
Mm.
So, I think it's
Other context windows, I mean, I haven't checked. I mean, the last time I bothered to check was probably about a year ago. I mean, the context windows now, I imagine, are so large that you can really push a lot of document through in one go.
yeah, I mean, so there's a couple of different techniques you can use. Obviously, RAG is another. Using, I think larger context window and vector search type of thing. Technology is another possibility. Our context window for our auto review technology is about 180,000 characters roughly,
Mm.
right? And so you can pass through a lot of text
Yeah,
through that and have it make a good classification based on that for majority of the data.
right.
Right. But it is, for documents that are larger, obviously that is a concern.
Mm,
So that's something that I think we'll always have to deal with. I don't envision where, there's going to be an unlimited um, number of tokens that you pass to an LLM just because it's unnecessary.
mm,
Um, but, maybe, we'll see what happens with that. But I think it's
mm.
always going to be a concern and something that, we just have to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure that will evolve and wait till quantum computing comes along and then you can put every single eDiscovery case on the planet through Disco in 5 minutes and it will
Yeah.
just oh. But anyway, moving on from wild futures to sort of more practical stuff. I mean, one of the reasons why eDiscovery moved outside of law firms in terms of the people who did, the TAR and so forth, was because when the law firms realized that they weren't going to get paid by the hour for it, and that or the hourly rates that they could get paid were so low that, even throwing very junior lawyers at it was just not economic for them. It moved out into ALSPs or whatever you want to call them, e-discovery shops, there's a whole bunch of different words for it. But effectively it was an external body, right, that did a lot of this work. I mean, you'd have a tech company like yours, or several of the other well-known ones, working with them. Has that changed, or do you think it will change? So, if e-discovery becomes lighter, you might say, in terms of manpower or human power, will some of the law firms say, look, you know what? We only need like 20 people now to do a lot of e-discovery on this case. We don't need to outsource this to a big ALSP. We can just bring it inside. It's not, we're a huge law firm. Having 20, 30 folks who just do this work using generative AI, it's not such a big deal anymore. We can keep this inside. Or maybe even some of the companies, some of the large clients who get involved in a lot of disputes a lot, right? Would they say, well, actually, we don't even need to send this to a law firm because it's so light touch now. We can just keep this inside the in-house legal team. This obviously wouldn't be for every kind of company, but companies that perhaps, let's say, an insurance company that's constantly getting into spats, right? It's part of its lifeblood. It might say to itself, well, you know what? Let's just create our own little e-discovery shop inside the business, and we'll have 20 people. We'll have the very best generative AI technology, and I mean, I just wonder what your thoughts are there. I mean, do you think that the technology will lead to more of a restructuring of the industry?
A good question. Um, One that I don't have a really good answer to.
Mm,
Um, I do think the amount of time and the kind of human power needed to complete e-discovery task as we know it today will shrink, right? It's assuming that, and it's a big assumption. But assuming that, let's say, there's a widespread adoption of using generative AI technology to do, let's say, a document review, right?
mm,
If that's the case, which I hope it is, I think it will shrink the number of human effort needed to complete that. Whether they can do it at a company or in-house, I think it will enable them to do so. Whether they actually will right? Or will they want to stay kind of more because the amount of human power is less, and because presumably the cost will come down? Will they still want to outsource?
Because this is the thing, isn't it? Reason why eDiscovery was effectively ejected from Big Law, from these big, lovely, very profitable law firms, is it just didn't fit their business model. But if you can bring the cost right down, and the number of staff right down, relative to the size of the cases, which are hugely, profitable, it's not such a big deal anymore. And even though you still can't run your, Harvard grads, who've become associates, you can't get them to do that work, not at least the initial run through. But having that small team is far less of a cost to you. And you might think, well, actually, if we compare the cost of running it in-house, inside the law firm, to sending it out to, XYZ ALSP, well, let's keep it to ourselves. And then we've got complete control over it as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think one of the benefits that we saw with e-discovery providers
Mm,
is that and we develop certain level of expertise. Now, that's not to say, other companies can't acquire that level of expertise, but
mm,
um, this is all we think about. This is all e-discovery companies do, and especially when we're tied with product,
mm,
we are, right? So our professionals are influencing and impacting how we develop product and how we use product and how we deploy product. So I think my opinion is that there will still be room for um, that division of labor where,
mm.
kind of the law firms focus on the things that they're really good at, which is, dispute settlement, dispute, litigation, and really the strategic parts of practicing law,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And in-house counsel is good at sort of risk mitigation and cost and such. And then I think you have the service providers that are really, really good at the service that they're providing, including,
Mm,
defensibility, and sort of how to manage some of that risk related to that specific task. So I think that in my mind, I think the model of specialization makes sense.
mm,
And especially if the costs come down,
mm.
at least in terms of use of the technology. Um, my personal feeling is that there's room for this kind of current model to continue so that each segment focuses on things that they're really, really good at.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. That makes sense. Actually, 'cause I remember back in the day, disco used to have a fair number of people doing this kind of, sort of review work as well. I guess today you're more of just a technology company. Is that
Oh
right?
no, we have full
You're still
service.
you're still doing that. You
Yeah,
still
so we
provide
have we
this.
have uh, we have a very, very seasoned team of project managers,
Mm.
managed review team, and so we actually do all of the review.
So you do the whole. You do the soup to nuts, as they say.
Yep. So we're I think the only company that is both a technology company and
Mm.
also offer a full suite of services.
Gotcha. Well, interesting. So moving on, and we're going to sort of wrap it up now shortly. Just a sort of last kind of question, which is where are we going? So we've come a long way, haven't we, in a very short space of time. We've gone from, oh, this will never work to, wow, this is like better than what we had before, to even the structure of the groups who are doing the work is changing. To people like me, even asking questions like, do we even need these groups anymore? Will they get sucked back into the law firms because they'll be so inexpensive? So really, lots going on. But where are we heading in the future, in the next 3 or 4 years? I mean, obviously, generative AI will get better, we presume. I mean, some argue, like Gary Marcus, that it's going to plateau out and it's never going to get any better, and we're going to have to use a new technology or something like that. Generally, if we stay on this vector, where are we going to get to?
I mean, I think that is the trillion-dollar question, right?
Mm,
And so I think the exciting thing about generative AI and especially generative AI in legal is that um, and the other benefit of really generative AI over, let's say, TAR is that with TAR, nobody knew about it outside of a few e-discovery people that were really interested in eDiscovery technology.
Mm.
With generative AI, everybody knows about it, including C-suite, including,
So,
GCs
so
and
expectations have changed because the CEO of a large company that was in a dispute wouldn't say, "Oh, you know what? I just wrote a thing about tar," whereas they're like, "Hey, hold on, what about generative AI?" So now
yeah,
their
or
expectations are changing.
what about the AI and specifically, what are you doing to leverage how are you leveraging AI? It's not about it's how are
Mm,
you leveraging AI to do, support me better, faster, cheaper, et cetera, right? So, but
mm,
the end clients and the higher ups at those end clients are asking those questions, which
mm,
trickles down to I think higher adoption, right? Because now we're seeing we never saw like TAR committees
mm,
at
mm.
companies or law firms. Now we're starting to see like AI committees being
Yeah.
formed at large law firms and such to
Mm,
discuss and implement and test AI technologies. So
mm,
I think that's going to help drive adoption much faster than we ever saw with TAR. And that's going to drive innovation. And so, if we stay at this vector, um, I think we're going to see AI in many of the tasks today, right? And some there already are, right? So, kind of the whatever the lawyer is doing, I think there will be some form of AI embedded within it. And ideally, it's not like, they're doing something and then, oh, like they have to go to another thing that has AI and then import those results into, whatever they were doing. It'll
mm.
be all sort of seamlessly embedded.
Well,
Um,
actually, it's an interesting point. I mean, I was just talking to a company before this call, and they focus on things like depositions and transcripts and so forth. And it's an interesting point, isn't it? I mean, one argument is that if one part of a technological ecosystem changes, then all the other parts have to as well. Right. They don't necessarily change in a week, but once we moved onto the internet, then you had smartphones, and then from smartphones you get, smart devices all around the house. So, and on and on and on it goes until to the point that, you get on a plane by your boarding pass is on your mobile phone and it just keeps building and building and the ecosystem just spreads out and just completely changes. So I guess like if eDiscovery goes all in on generative AI, I mean everything else is connected to eDiscovery, which is a lot of different technologies, will change too.
yeah, yeah. And so, the things that you're talking about obviously rings true for me because that one of the things, we are at least at Disco, we're trying to connect kind of our e-discovery platform with Hold with our case builder, which is the more like deposition management and such, right? So, and bringing AI into each of those kind of different tasks so that when the lawyer or when the user is using technology, that they have the benefit of using AI that's embedded within the native platform, right? And you're right. Like, I think all of those, essentially, kind of the ecosystem needs to change so that, they're using AI-enabled tools as opposed to using a tool and then grabbing AI and do something and then, kind of using disparate systems, right? I think it's going to
Yeah.
start becoming a lot more.
But I
Um,
think that's going to happen organically. I mean, I think, but whether you're a cynic or you, you totally don't believe it or you refuse to use it or it's just completely irrelevant. I mean, it's like being someone who's like, I'm never going to use online banking, but then all the physical banks close their offices, and it's like, well, now what are you going to do?
yeah.
It's like you're going to use online banking. So, and and I think this is what's going to. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, I think that sort of ecosystem aspect. Because obviously, for me, an artificial lawyer, I'm looking at e-discovery, I'm looking at M&A due diligence, I'm looking at private equity fund formation, I'm looking at, a whole like 12 different practice areas. And they will all end up connecting together to some degree. Whereas that was never possible before because the data was just so heavy, so chunky, so disparate. But when you've got like, yeah, I think the data flows are going to become much more interesting.
Yeah, data flow and with all that interconnectedness,
Mm,
now you start, you can also bring like agentic AIs into play, right?
Well, yeah, we didn't even get into that, but we'll have to save that for the next chat. But I mean, I would have thought, I mean, as far as the discovery is concerned, I mean, the agentic bit is just simply going, if it works out well, it's simply just going to speed up the process even more, isn't it? You know, if it
Yeah, speed up the
doesn't work
process
out, you're
and
just going to create more problems.
yeah, ideally it would, solve problems and really become more, results driven as opposed to process driven, right? Like, so this is what I want. You, agentic AI, figure out what the steps need to be so
Mm,
that you can, so that you can give me this desired outcome. So, I think the outcome based um, processes, if you will, and using AI and giving AI the tools to kind of deliver that result,
mm.
it's going to be fascinating. But I mean, we're only, in my mind, we're only scratching the surface of what we'll be able
Oh
to
yeah.
do
The
AI.
agentic
So
stuff was so early. I mean, the fundamental problem, we really are going off, and I guess we'll have to end it very shortly, but in a nutshell, the fundamental problem is accuracy. If you have a system that is planning and reasoning and doing, acting out and then bringing back the results and then making a decision about it, if it's not super accurate, then you're just amplifying all the errors and it could really go off kilter very easily. If we can get stability and accuracy very, very, very high, then I think the sky's the limit. And then I think rather than having going from a team of 50 to 20, we'll probably get down to a team of two, because you really don't need it. You just send your agents off to do everything. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
yeah, I'm still optimistic that with that, along with that, and maybe it is the kind of validation or what have you that it will create other areas that humans could focus their attention on. I think it's
Possibly. Well, but they can get a job outside the legal world, you know. It's a. I think this is one I think. Well, I really will have to wrap up now. But I mean, I think one of the great delusions or illusions that the legal market has, and it's understandable given its incredible success over centuries, whatever, is that, hey, once we've finished off X task, there'll be something more interesting for these people to do. But it's not necessarily like that. I mean, the legal world produces more and more data, and the contracts get bigger and bigger and bigger. But the actual sort of thought processes needed to handle that stuff doesn't go higher and higher and higher. You know, you don't go. We're not all going to have to like reach sort of like Einstein levels of intelligence to be able to deal with this stuff. There'll just be more of it. And if the tech can handle it and agents can work through the processes and get the results that we want, well, that's it. It's like toast. I mean, how good a piece of toast do you want, right? I mean, my toast is pretty good. It'll make a nice piece of toast. And you could say, ah, yes, but now you can make better toast. You can make toast like the likes of which you've never imagined. And you're like, yeah, but I just want a piece of toast. It's like the toaster's done it. Right. The guy who used to come to my house and toast my food for me, I had to sack him. I'm joking, obviously, but you see my point. I don't need the guy who toasts my bread anymore because the machine that makes toast is good enough,
yeah, no, I hear you.
and that's it. He's gone.
I think those are the similar arguments that or kind of concerns that we had when the internet came around too, right? The internet
Mm,
was going to just kill all these jobs because now all the kind of the
mm,
information is at your fingertips. And I think what we saw is
mm,
it created jobs that we didn't even know existed, right? Like before internet, like no one knew about SEOs,
mm.
didn't know those jobs existed. But when
But
internet came,
it's an interesting one. Well, I'm going completely off. We really will, like so at five, but shows it's the proof of a good conversation when you can't stop it. But I mean, just one last point is that the internet was basically information, right? And finding information. What we're talking about with generative AI is productivity. We're talking about, the means of production.
sure,
But, and I think that puts us on a different level. And I think that's why it's so interesting, which is why I'm still, you know, working in the legal tech sector. I would have left years ago. If things had plateaued out as it felt like they were in sort of mid 2022, I think I probably would have left by now. But generative AI has changed everything. It's actually starting to fulfill the promise that I started to believe would happen in 2015, 2016, which is that the entire productive ecosystem would change.
yeah, no,
Um,
it's an exciting time for sure.
that it is,
Absolutely,
it really is, and it really, like you mentioned a couple of times, but we're just at the beginning.
yeah.
And you've seen it. I mean, you've seen. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, like we'll look back in 10 years and just be like amazed at how far we got.
We'll look back in 2 years and be amazed
True.
how far we've gotten.
It's true. It's true. Oh, look, but James, it's been a real pleasure. Real pleasure. Got to end it there. But thank you very much. And as you can see on his screen, James works at Disco, and you can reach him. I am sure. Where are you based, by the way, James?
I'm just out of San Francisco, and so I'm in the Bay Area.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you should come along to Legal Innovators, California, then. It'll just be around the
Oh,
corner from you. All right. Gotta leave it there. Thank you. Take care.
all right. Thanks, Richard.